Okay, thanks for joining us. So this is the first of hopefully many Leitrim Sustainable Energy Communities webinars. Currently, there are 12 spread across Leitrim Sustainable Energy Communities, and I had planned to show you a map. What I'll do is in the chat, when my colleague starts his presentation, I'll put a little link so you can search and see which ones are nearby. I would encourage people, if they're not already talking to their local sustainable energy community and they're interested in the space, to go and make contact with them. And if you find there isn't one in your region, you can contact me, which I'll also put my details in the text box after this, and I can help you get started. So tonight we're going to have a presentation by my colleague Mel Gavin about home energy grants, followed by James Duffy from the Leitrim Development Company, who's going to talk about the energy upgrades and renewable energy grants for business. So to get started, I'm going to hand you over to Mel.
Thanks, Paul. I realise that I recognise a lot of people on the call, a lot of names and some faces that I can see. Some of you may have got this link through friends or through other networks. Just to put a bit of background on it, the Sustainable Energy Communities Programme is a community support programme run by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, SEAI. So it's not about capital grants, but it's about helping you to understand your energy needs, how you're using energy, and which grants might be the best for your homes, your businesses, and your community organisations. So tonight I'm going to focus on the current range of home energy grants. There's been a lot of press recently, a lot of headlines, and a lot of the details are hidden in the background. So I'll try and explain the various routes that are available to people. I'll just check now, Paul, to see if I can share, and it appears I can. That's good. Okay. Okay, that's all you. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully you can all see that. And as Paul said, you know, we're trying to keep momentum going, try to, I suppose, rebuild some momentum in Leitrim with some of the communities. There have been SECs in Leitrim that have been active over the years and have been working with us to keep their communities informed, and some that have been able to access capital grants with a little bit of support from us as well. So as I was saying, I'm going to focus for tonight on the main routes for homeowners. So this is whether you're part of a sustainable energy community or not, you can access these. We'd like our communities to be able to inform local people about them. So the three main routes are shown here. The free energy upgrades, obviously that's the most attractive. That's the warmer home scheme. But that is only eligible if you qualify for that. And I'll go through more details on each of these. The next one there is the one-stop shop route. This is the one that's hit the headlines. It's a full home upgrade. You have to, if you go through this route, then you have to do a fairly significant investment in one go to get your home to a B or building energy rating of B2 and an uplift of 100 kilowatt hours per meter square per year. I'll explain that a little bit more when we go through the details. If you are not eligible for the free upgrades and you can't do that single investment in one go up to B2 BER, then there are still the individual energy upgrade grants available to you. So everyone can avail of these grants. So there is a route for anyone who's looking to invest in their home upgrades. The various measures that are available in those three routes are shown here, and you can see the middle column, which is the one-stop shop service. Why it's hit the headlines is it's offering a full project service from start to finish through one contact in a one-stop shop. So it's a very well supported route. There aren't any one-stop shops listed at the moment. I know that's hit the headlines, but they are going to be listed in the coming weeks. And there will be more of these as time goes on. So you can see then that there are less upgrades available in the other schemes. So we'll start with the free energy upgrades, which is generally known as the warmer home scheme, and within SEI it's still called the warmer home scheme. So many of you may have heard it, but there's been some recent changes, and I'd like everyone to be aware of that. The warmer home scheme is intended to address energy poverty, but it is for homeowners, not for tenants. So it's entirely free at the point of delivery. So the homeowner does not pay any money over to contractors. The contractors are paid entirely by SEAI. The qualification here for this is that you must own and live in the home, and the home must have been built and occupied before 2006. And then also you need to be in receipt of one of these social welfare payments. Not all of them, because that would be pretty tough going, but just one of these. So the fuel allowance, the job seekers allowance for over 6 months with the child under 7, the working family payment, the one parent family payment, the domiciliary care allowance, the carer's allowance and living with the person you are caring for. And then the final one that I've got in bold has been added just this February. So it's the disability allowance for over 6 months with the child under 7. So that's one of the recent changes. The various measures that are included in the scheme are attic insulation, all of the different wall insulations that you can see there. And then they'll also consider other measures like lagging jackets. In some occasions, they'll do heating upgrades and window replacements. But that depends on the SEI's assessor who assesses the home to see what's the most effective measure of works for the home. Some of the changes that have happened since the 8th of February, they're now prioritizing homes occupied before 1993 and with those lower pre-works BER ratings of E, F, and G. That's not going to affect any applications that are already in the pipeline, that they won't be affected by that prioritization. The third point here is probably the most important, is that applications will now be accepted from qualifying homeowners who have previously received measures under this scheme. So up until now, you could only have availed of this scheme once. But because the scheme is now offering deeper measures than it had, let's say 10 years ago, there's a good chance that the home could be improved by some of these deeper measures. The process is that the homeowner makes the application, and I'll go through some of the details in the application form in a moment. There are some supporting documents to be included with that application. It's not all that onerous. You do have to get a stamp from the Office of Social Protection, whichever is the closest office. So you make the application, that goes directly to SEAI. If they'll assess your eligibility at that stage, and they'll contact you to then arrange the initial assessment. So that's the survey stage. They'll send out an assessor. That assessor will decide what is right for the home that you're living in. You don't really get a choice in terms of a menu of options. They'll determine what is most cost effective under the scheme. Then that your home and the list of measures to be included will make its way to the contractor framework, and then the contractors will then contact you to arrange when the works are going to be done. And following the works being completed, SEI will organise a follow-up building energy rating assessment, and they'll also check in with you about your experience of the scheme. The cautionary note here is that between application stage and delivery stage, there's currently a waiting list of at least 18 months, and it could be up to 2 years. So that can be very frustrating for people, but it's still, if you're eligible, I would still advise anyone to get their application in. So looking at the application form itself, I won't go through it word for word here. I'll just show you that it is reasonably easy to fill in. Some of the supporting documents you're going to need. On the front page, they have this checklist to remind you that you have to have these documents with your application. Point A there is simply the application form that you've completed it. B then is the proof of ownership of your home. So for this, you only need to provide a copy of one of the documents listed there. The home insurance policy, the mortgage statement, or the title deeds. So you just need a copy of one of those. Following that, then C, you need your local property tax letter and accompanied by a utility bill dated within the last 6 months. And then D there is basically depending on some of the social welfare payments that you may be claiming as eligibility for this. Particularly the ones where you have a child as well, you need to provide your child's birth certificate, or a photocopy of your child's birth certificate, not the original. And with the carers allowance, for some reason I'm not aware of, there's an additional carers allowance confirmation form to be completed. This is then the start of the application form that you're filling in. You start with your NPRN, which is your meter number, and you'll find that on your electricity bill, and then your own name and details and air code and contact details. You can nominate a contact to deal with SEAI on your behalf, and that can be quite useful for some people. This is the part of the form then you need to have stamped at the local social protection office. So you tick whichever one of the payments is qualifying you for the scheme, and the department official then needs to stamp that. They need to sign it and date it as well. Then your declaration below that is simply confirming that you've read the application guidelines and that you're accepting those. You're consenting to use of personal data for research purposes, and you're consenting to be contacted for getting feedback after the works as well. The last page of the application form, I've shown it in two parts here, but the last page is details about the home. So it's really, which fuels you use for your space heating, for your water heating, details about your hot water cylinder, if you live in a large town or city, an approximation of when the house was built, and the property type, whether it's detached, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a terrace house, etc. Then if you have a chimney, if you have a lobby or a porch, if you already have solar panels for hot water, if you use your electric immersion for hot water in the summer, and most of us do if we have one, and if you have an electricity or gas allowance, then how many people live in the home and how many people living in the home are in employment. And that's the bulk of the application form. So it's reasonably easy to fill in, and you can get help from us as the mentor team as well. Then you can submit it by post or by email. And there is quite a good free phone number there to call. It is quite available. You don't get left waiting too long, because I've used it a few times myself on behalf of people. So that's the free works. So great if you qualify for that yourself, or if you know somebody you think might qualify for that, please let them know. Please let them know about it. The more applications that you can get in one local area, the likelihood is a contractor will select those to do the works quicker. So moving on from there, then we're looking at the one-stop shop service. So this is the full service from an organization that has been registered as a one-stop shop. They will manage everything from your initial contact to them. You make an initial inquiry to them, and they will manage everything from there. So that includes the initial home energy assessment, and that will give you a menu, or that should give you a menu of what is required to bring your house to a B2 rating, or to whatever rating is required. A list of costs for those works, the grants that are available, to help you make a decision as to whether you want to go ahead with that. Now, I'm advising everyone at this stage not to expect to get that home energy assessment for free. It's a considerable piece of work. They need to have a BER assessor, a heat pump technical assessor to do this work for them. So it's a professional spending their time, maybe not all that much time at the house, but doing the analysis afterwards as well. So it is a piece of professional work. It is a valuable report for you. So I wouldn't expect to get it for free. Some of the media coverage of this has, if not directly suggested it, has seemed to imply that the home energy assessment would be free. I don't believe it will be. Certainly I know as an organization trying to run a team, I don't think we could do this for free. So expect to pay somewhere in the region of 500 to 600 euros. Now, there is a grant of 350 that can be redeemed on this, and the one-stop shop should be able to help you with that, but clarify that with them at the start. When you get that home energy assessment, then you're moving on to the measures. As I was saying before, you essentially need to accept the full menu of measures to get you to this minimum B2 rating. So if you're going to go ahead with it, then the one-stop shop, they'll make all the grant applications to SEAI, they'll project manage the works, they'll either be the contractor themselves or they'll organize the contractors. And in addition to helping you, or in addition to getting the grant support for you, they should be able to at least introduce you to some finance options with some finance partners like credit unions and that. That would help you then cover the net costs of the home upgrade over a long-term loan. And also then finally, once the works are complete, the one-stop shop will organize the post-works BER, and then you'll know that your home has reached its B2 or whatever above that it may be reaching. So to put some context on this condition of reaching a BER B2 and an improvement of your BER by at least 100 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year. You can see here on the right the colored chart of building energy ratings, and the marker at B2 that's marked with the green arrow. Now to the left of that line of the B2, you can see that figure of 100. That means that a home that is rated at B2 a typical home, if there is such a thing, that is maintaining a comfortable temperature all year round, will use 100 kilowatt hours or less per meter squared per year. So that's the number that needs to be improved. So if you're at a C3, and if you look further down there to C3, you'll see the number is 200. So getting from C3 to a B2, you're reaching the B2 and you've improved your BER by 100 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year. If your home is already above a C3, then you're going to have to get higher than a B2. I hope that makes sense. So for example, if your home is at a C1, the kilowatt hours per meter squared year figure is 150. So you have to get to a B2, but that only gives you an improvement of 50 kilowatt hours per meter squared per year. So you need an additional 50. So your home will need to get to an A3 if you go down this one-stop shop route. I hope that makes sense. The grants that are available for homes in terms of the age of your home, the grants, and I'll show you the grant measures in a moment. The grants for any insulation works or any heating controls are, excuse me, are available for any homes built and occupied before 2011. And then the grants for renewable systems, that would be your heat pumps and your solar PV or solar thermal panels, they're available for homes built and occupied before 2021. So these are the grant levels. I appreciate there's a lot there to look at, but we will be sending these slides out, and they are all quite easy to find on the SEAI website. But you'll see here that through the one-stop shop route, there's actually quite a lot available at the moment. The grants have been approved in their amounts. They're intended, in most cases, they're intended to cover approximately 40 to 50% of the cost of a typical home. And those costs were assessed in 2021, not before that. So they would take into account a lot of the increase in cost we would have seen last year at least. And then the ceiling insulation and the cavity wall insulation, you'll see those rows, the figures are in bold. They've increased even more. They're intended now to cover approximately 80% of the typical cost of those measures in a typical home. The other differentiators here are for some of the fabric and insulation grants, and they differentiate between the size of the home, between detached, semi-detached, mid-terrace and apartment. There's no differentiation for a bungalow or a two-story. So bungalows can get quite good value from this. Okay. In addition to this, because if you're going to this one-stop shop route, it's quite likely that you'll be looking at a heat pump grant or a heat pump installation. So in addition to the air-to-water heat pump grant of 6,500, there's a central heating system grant. If you have to upgrade your central heating system, you may need to change radiators, you may need to reroute some pipe work, and there's an additional 2,000 euros for that, and that's new this year. There's still the heat controls grant of 700 euros as well. And also at the very bottom, you'll see there's a one-stop shop scheme launch bonus for getting to B2 with a heat pump of 2,000 euros. Now that should be in place for at least this year. It may go away next year. So if this is something you've been thinking about, there is an additional 2,000 euros in the grant scheme for that kind of an upgrade this year at the very least. Now, I can see my note here is out of date. The list of current one-stop shops will be available on the SEAI website in March. It was initially in February, it said early March. In early March, it said mid-March. In mid-March, it said late March, and now it's saying in the coming weeks. So most of you will have heard that, again, the headlines that SEAI had to answer all questions on this. They have registered 2 one-stop shop organizations, but they're not going to list them until they have at least 3 through the registration process. I would expect that to happen in the coming weeks. I'd expect it to happen in April. And then there are more organizations in the process of this registration. Now, despite that, talking to local SEAI registered contractors like Leitrim Warmer Homes, you will get good advice on this anyway, because they may well be a one-stop shop. They may well be one of the 17 that are listed in the queue to be one-stop shops. But even if they're not, they're going to know the scheme better than I do. They're going to know the scheme quite well, and they will probably be able to align you with a one-stop shop. Excuse me, that's the one-stop shop route. So we've covered the free energy upgrades. We've covered the one-stop shop route. If you can't avail of the free energy upgrades, the one-stop shop route is good, but it's a big investment. It's one project in one go to get your home to a fairly significant level. So you're going to need some capacity to make that investment. And then there are the other homes that simply will not get to a B2 in any practical sense. So they cannot go down the one-stop shop route. So if you don't fit into the one-stop shop route, then these individual energy upgrade grants are still available. It's more work for the homeowner to do more of thinking around it, to do more of the work with the contractors. But in most cases, the SEAI registered contractors will help you through this process as well. So, you have to pick your contractor, which, is not the end of the world. You may have to do more work on the grant application. You have to organize everything with your contractor, and you will be responsible for a follow-up building energy rating. The grants then that are available, as I was saying before, there aren't as many grants in this, so it's not as well supported, this route. But the grants are there. The grant values for any of the measures that are available are exactly the same as they are in the one-stop shop route. So that is good. So particularly here, the ceiling insulation, the cavity wall insulation, those 2 things alone are the most cost-effective you can do to any home, generally speaking. So if anyone doesn't have those done already, right now is a good time to get them done. The heat pump grant is still there. The heating controls grant is still there. And the solar hot water and solar PV grants are still there. Now, whether you're going the one-stop shop route or the individual route, you can see my bullet point at the bottom here on the heat pump technical assessment. The home has to be cleared as heat pump ready. So you do need a technical assessment on that. And through the individual grant route, there's a 200 euro grant against that to help you with the cost of that. So the cost of that is typically around 600 euros. And then when you're finished with all this, in order to claim the grant value back, you do need to have your post-works BER completed. but there is also a grant of €50 against the cost of that as well. Now, for anyone who's wondering where to start with trying to find a contractor, there is a search page on the SEAI website, which allows you to search by county. So again, we'll send these slides out. You can then use that link there. It is a live link. It'll take you to this search page. You can select your county. You can select the measures that you're interested in and click search, and you'll get a table then of all of the SEAI registered contractors in that county. Okay, so that is me in terms of slides, but I'm quite happy to open up the floor now. Paul, how are we doing on time?
What we might do is we might let James do his as well, and then have questions at the end, if that's okay. I see there's some coming in on the chat anyways, so
okay. So
we can keep track of them there, and if everybody's okay, maybe we'll get the presentations out of the way and then open it up to a bit of a conversation.
Yeah, I'll see if I can answer some of the ones on the chat while that's happening. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. James, I'm just going to give you permission to share your screen there.
Cheers, Paul.
You should be okay now.
Yeah. Okay, can everyone see and hear?
Yeah,
good sign.
Seems good.
Okay, welcome along. Thanks a million for inviting me, Mel and Paul. That's great to get the opportunity to speak on this forum. In terms of Leader, the interest within energy or energy efficiency and renewable energy played a big part in this program. And really, we're coming to the end of the current Leader program, our 2014 to 2020 program. We're currently on an interim fund with just a small packet of money. And the local action group within Leitrim was very keen that we focused again back on renewable energy, that we had a focus in 2018 very much for community organizations, and they wanted us to put another focus on renewable energy for businesses and social enterprises. In terms of my background, I've been working within the energy field for must be about 22, 23 years now. Generally, what I try and do is practice what I preach. So these are some of the stuff that we do at home. So about 20 years ago, we installed a 2.5 kilowatt Proven wind turbine. In around 2007, we installed a 40 kilowatt log gasification boiler for our house at home. In 2015, we installed 2 4 kilowatt installations of PV across 2 farms across the shed roofs. In 2015, also purchased first electric car. This is now my second, my current Leaf, the little white one. And about 3 years ago, we installed a small solar water heating system to heat showers on an outer block that we have here at the house. So I've dabbled in pellets. I've dabbled in heat pumps. I think what you find is that certain technologies suit certain situations better than others. And in most cases, you kind of have to really do your homework to determine whether it's going to be suitable for you in your environment. Even though within the Leader program, we focus very heavily on renewable energy, that it was written into our contract that we had to, no matter what, we will always start with energy efficiency. And in terms of anything that you're doing, it's always the starting point. You should never start with renewable energy. It will never be the economic win that energy efficiency can offer both homes and businesses. So no matter what presentation I've ever done on energy, I've always done the first 2 slides relating to energy efficiency, just to give an indication as to what little mindset changes can do, and then what higher cost measures and low cost measures can do. That these will always be the ones, both economically and environmentally, that make the biggest difference within your house or business. And in terms of the grants on offer through Leader this time around, that we can this time, whereas last time we could only focus on renewable energy with energy efficiency measures, this time around we potentially can take on applications that are energy efficiency specific. So good to see that difference kicking in this time, that if someone's coming to us, let's say an engineering company and they want to improve the insulation within the building, they want to improve the glazing within the building, and they want to improve some of the equipment within the building to get more energy efficient equipment, then they can make that application the leader this time round and not have to include a renewable energy technology within the full confines of the application. So as I said, in terms of the way the leader program was written this time, we had a very specific sub-measure that was called renewable energy, and that's why the focus came within that we had to focus everything on renewable energy. That within this transition program, we're allowed to be a little bit more flexible, and therefore we can open it out so that we can also focus on projects that are energy efficiency related, but also if there was waste management projects, rainwater harvesting projects, that we can also look at them for business and community enterprise also. In terms of what we've done back in 2018 when we released grant support for community groups for renewable energy, we had a very, very specific focus on solar PV. Solar PV, probably not the best example in terms of the economic and cost benefit, but because we were offering grant of 75% for community organizations, it actually was a very good project to take on board. And that even these figures I have updated since, that based on current kilowatt hour pricing of in around 22 cents, that the potential for payback on a 75% grant is in around 2 to 3 years, which is really, really good on a straight PV system when you're taking into account the 75% grant. The benefit this time around, where the last time we released this, we did accept applications from business, but at that time businesses were only being funded at 50%. This time around, we're allowed to offer grant support of up to 75%. So a really good opportunity for businesses throughout the county to make an application potentially for PV, but for whatever mix they may wish. That if I go to the next slide, you'll see the mix of things that we've done with the community centres. That yes, the core was PV, but also others were putting in new doors, new heating and lighting. Some put in electric car charging. That a lot were looking in terms of LED upgrades, and then others in terms of obviously loft and cavity insulation. That we had a good mix of projects through that call that we done in 2018, and you can see the fruits of the labour here in terms of the projects that were installed. So the vast majority were community organisations, but we did do 2 private organisations during that call also. The Old Rectory, which is a guest house in Fina and self-catering accommodation, and then the Tea Shed, which is a cafe down at Glencar Waterfall. And you can see the projects from the top right is the first one, 11 kilowatt PV system that no one knows exists on the top of the Tea Shed in Glencar. Next one down, Ohwillan GA Club, which also put in the LED floodlighting. The building below is Leitrim Education and Training Company, put in 8 kilowatt of PV, electric car charger, upgraded all their Economy 7 storage heaters to new diplex style storage heaters, and also done upgrades in terms of the glazing and the doors with access to the building. The one below is the Loch Allen Centre down just beside the Ramada in Drumshambo, put in an 8 kilowatt system. The one to the left from that, Dell will know pretty well that that's 6 kilowatt system spread across the west and east faces of the community centre in Balnaglera. The ground mount system we installed was a 4 kilowatt system at the Organic Centre, and then the one on the very left is the Hive in Carrick and Shannon, which installed 11 kilowatts spread across 2 orientations on the roof of the building. Within this program also, we had quite a significant focus on biomass. This really led on from what we had done in the 2007 to 2013 program, that we had a very specific focus on biomass within that program, and from that led projects that came out of that we had worked with Macaulay Wood Fuels through that program in the purchase of the little yellow chipper in the third picture from the left. This then upgraded in this program and went on to buy the Kelsa wood chipper, which you see filling the red trailer in the middle of the pictures at the bottom. Also McMorrow Harvesting, that we would have done a study tour to Scotland, and both these guys were with us on that. And really it was a great learning curve for them to see what was possible, and that at this stage Jerry McMorrow is probably one of the best examples of a chipping setup plus log setup probably within the country, really. A really nice example of a drying system to bring the chip down to the levels required to be saleable, and that as part of this program he applied for support to purchase the chipper, which is the green chipper down in the bottom left hand corner, and received a 50% grant of 200,000 on a total project cost of 400,000. So big investment, but good grant for what was got. Also, Sean Ferguson, who we had again worked with in the last program, trading as Fireburn Fuels, came back to us in this program to purchase a timber extraction trailer and crane to feed the little green log splitter that you saw. That's a kindling machine. He has also a log splitter in the bottom right hand corner. So again, there was always a focus on biomass within the county, that we see it as a good circular economy. I know it has its drawbacks, but nonetheless it has the opportunity of being a great employer within the county, and also very, very good for the locality in terms of its sustainability for the county. So as said earlier, that we're slightly broader this time around, and that we can look in terms of waste management within businesses and community enterprises. In some cases, we done a rainwater harvesting system in the previous program within Ballinamore. We haven't had great interest, but it's definitely something we can look at if there was businesses out there that wanted to do something within this remit. So in terms of what we're offering this time around, this grant has been open for quite a while, that it's open nearly in around a year now, but we didn't really promote it to any great extent up to this point, that we focused on the other areas of the transition program purely because they tend to sell better. So obviously we focused on community organizations, tourism projects, etc., and got money out to them first. What we set aside was 150,000, and we were offering grants of 75% up to a maximum of 25,000 for, as I said, private businesses and solar enterprises in County Leitrim. That the current transition fund has to be allocated by the end of this year, that there will be a very specific focus now for about 2 months to get this money allocated and to letter of offer, and then projects will have a year letter of offer, the opportunity then of getting a year to install their technologies that they had applied for. I think the key to this, from my point of view, is that I have a window of opportunity to get projects allocated. Once I go beyond 3 or 4 months, if the funds aren't allocated by that stage, others will come knocking at the door and want the money to be transferred elsewhere. So you're just really never going to see an opportunity like this in terms of private businesses having an opportunity of a 75% grant for energy efficiency and renewable energy measures. That it is something quite unique in terms of the level of grant funding that's available. There is limits within the types of business that we can fund through LEADER, that we're still based on the original LEADER program and the rules associated with it. So generally we don't do retail, and we tend to not deal with what would be perceived as being standard businesses. So the likes of doctors and solicitors and let's say beauticians, hairdressers, etc. So really what I'll come back to is within LEADER, we have this wonderful word called displacement, that basically if there's evidence that your application has the potential to significantly displace another business that's doing something similar in the area, it will struggle. But in in most cases, we will try and make a case for you. And no matter what, our advice to you is to put in an expression of interest, a very simple process in terms of clicking the live link at the bottom of this page, and just let us know what you're thinking. And from that, we can advise in terms of both the business model, whether you would be eligible in principle to apply, and in terms of the items that you're applying for funding, what would or may not be eligible for funding. So again, just in summary, that, as I said, the LAG wanted this to happen within the transition fund. We know that the next program will have quite a significant focus on renewable energy also, but it is not likely to open for funding until mid to late 2023. So this really is the only opportunity currently for this type of, we can deal with micro, medium and small businesses. So quite substantial businesses within the county have the opportunity to apply for quite a nice little packet of money, up to 75% funded. And I think that's me in a nutshell. I probably ran fast.
Thanks, James. That's great. So does anybody want to ask any questions of either Mel or James?
Paul, I might just try and answer a couple of the questions that came in on chat that I didn't want to go trying to type the answer.
Okay.
So I might just address them now. Mel had a question about your house. You say it's over 200 years old, so not eligible for a BER. And would that affect your grant application? I'm not aware that the age of the home would restrict you from getting a BER. So has somebody told you that? Mel, if you want to unmute yourself there and
Hi, Mel. Yeah, hi.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard from various people that there's no, well, I probably phrased it wrong, but that there's no point in getting a BER because an old house like this is so drafty that even though it holds the heat in its own way, the BER just won't be of any value to us.
Yeah, what I would say then is the one-stop shop route is probably not for you because it would be technically very hard to get a building energy rating of B2 because the assessment of how that building energy rating is done, the dwelling energy assessment process, is fairly standardized for more modern houses. So it might not fully reflect the energy you're using. So that route might not be for you, but I still think you could get a BER assessment. It's probably going to say, put you down at the G, that's probably what it's going to say. But in terms of being eligible to make a grant under the individual grants, that shouldn't hold you up. You should be able to make a grant application and get a post-works BER. Is that okay? Okay.
Also, to add to that,
Okay. Yeah,
personally,
thanks.
I've just got a BER assessment done on a 150-year-old house. So, yeah, stone walls, meter thick, and it had to be done for the sale. So it is possible. I haven't gone.
BER rating, Paul?
Oh, it was G. It was G. But don't worry, the BER assessor is getting me up to a C. Don't worry. Yeah, it's only going to cost me a small fortune, and yeah. So, but it is doable. Yeah.
Okay, there was another question here from Paul about, Paul, you're asking me, is there any allowance for getting the assessment done? Considering not all who get it done will qualify for the grant, and the cost is unknown, that may make it difficult to get individuals to sign up. Can I ask you just to tell me which assessment we're talking about there? Is it the home energy assessment through the one-stop shop?
I was thinking, Mel, of the second entry, which is the one-stop shop. Yes. Yeah.
So basically anyone can call a one-stop shop and ask for a home energy assessment. You're probably going to have to pay them for that. But if they carry out that home energy assessment, then they should be able to deliver you the €350 grant against the home energy assessment.
Okay.
So if they charge you initially, let's say 500 or 600, you should get 350 back. But that's something to ask them straight off.
But I suppose if it turns out that you don't qualify for
Well,
the entire grant, you could still.
I suppose just everyone can qualify for it.
Okay.
If the home energy assessment says there's no practical way of get to your home to a B2, then that's your answer.
Yeah.
But the measures in there should still be costed, so you could still then use that report to go and look at the individual grants.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, also, I would expect a one-stop shop in an initial free consultation if they can see obviously that there's a very practical issue with your home. If it's an old stone house, you know, with lots and lots of holes in it, I would expect them to advise you at that stage that the one-stop shop route is not for you.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Mel. Thanks.
Jenny O'Hara is asking who could provide energy wasting awareness stays for staff. Well, you could provide it yourself. There is actually a very good resource now called the SEAI Energy Academy, which is a list of free online modules, most of them aimed at small businesses. What I've advised businesses in the past is if you have a large enough staff, and it doesn't need to, you don't need to be a massive business, but give one person the job of being your in-house energy champion. Help them to set targets and have them sit some of these modules and just start some simple targets, some shutdown procedures, understanding and tracking energy bills, and then maybe do some of the more advanced modules. They're all free. They take about anywhere between sort of 20 minutes and half an hour to complete a module. They're very clear. You are tracked and you get a little certificate for completing that. So that is a decent place to start. Okay, we have another question then. If upgrading one facade with internal lining and the 3 others with external insulation, how does that work with external wall insulation and potential grant scale available? That's quite tricky. SEAI will generally only grant fund works if you're, let's say, if you're upgrading an element, in this case a wall, you have to upgrade all the walls. If the technical recommendation from your one-stop shop or your SEAI registered contractor is that, you know, that wall, that one facade only suits internal dry lining, and you can do external wall insulation on the other dry linings, then personally I think that would be grant funded. But again, the contractor or the one-stop shop will be the best people to advise you on that, as long as you're treating all of the walls in that project. Okay.
Does anybody want to unmute and ask a question, or?
I have one question.
Who are we going with?
You go with the lady.
Ladies first.
Sorry, I guess that's me. I have a question just in regards to the one-stop shop, and as there is current kind of timeline for getting the free grants, is there an expected timeline to wait for the one-stop shop to start to kick off?
Yeah, I certainly don't expect it to be that long. Like the one-stop shops, our organization, this is commercial work for them. So as soon as they're registered, obviously I think at the start they will be inundated with calls. So there probably will be, you know, a big glut of action and work for them. But it's not the same process as the warmer home scheme. So it's not the same challenge for them. So I don't see there being a huge timeline to wait for the one-stop shop route. I think if the one-stop shops are registered in April, they'll get a load of calls and they'll start a lot of work this year. I think if you're, you know, if you get through the home assessment process, I would foresee you getting work done this year.
Great, thanks.
Eamon, I think you were next, were you?
Yeah, just inquiring about external insulation for a stone house. I'm the same as you with the stone house. We wouldn't be really fond of covering it with some sort of plastic or foam or whatever. I've been thinking about hemp.
Yeah, and so there was some questions in there in hemp, and I did try to answer that in the chat. So SEAI will only grant fund works that are done with certified products. So there's no hemp product I'm aware of at the moment that has an NSAI Agrimont certificate as a building product. So at the moment they do not certify hemp works. There are certified breathable insulations that are suitable for stone walls. So there's a company called Ecological Building Systems. I think they're the main supply route for those products into Ireland. Now, I don't believe that would be covered under the warmer home scheme, under the free works. But one-stop shops and SEI registered contractors, as far as I'm aware, would be able to install those and get you whatever grant is available. It'll be the same grant, but those materials are going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
So there's a company called EcoSmart Insulation. They're based in Castlereagh. They also have Castlereagh and County Roscommon. The guy's name is Pat Lavin. They also have, I think they have an office in Dublin as well, or a headquarters in Dublin. As far as I'm aware, Pat has done some stone walls with that kind of material, and has had it grant funded as well.
Yeah. No, that's good. Thanks for that, Mel. Thank you.
Somebody else there, Eddie?
Just that would be wood fibre, would it? Mel?
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. The wood fibre is I think is probably the more common one. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else, or will we?
Well, I have a question, but it mightn't be useful to everybody. It just, so if you know the second system that you were talking about there, where you bring in the one-stop contractor, who pays that contractor? Is it does the scheme pay them, or does the scheme pay money to the client and then to the contractor? What's that process?
In the one-stop shop, you're the client of that one-stop shop. So the one-stop shop is simply an organization. Now there'll be different types of organizations registering as one-stop shops. Some of them will be primarily contractors, but some of them will be sort of project management companies or energy suppliers. So for instance, SSE Electricity may well be registered as a one-stop shop. You'll contact them, they'll have their own framework of contractors, they'll have their own framework of assessors. But the one-stop shop route, and this is part of the reason why it's been sort of quite bureaucratic to get it up and running. There's quite a stringent requirement on them. The homeowner shouldn't be dealing with multiple different people. They should have one point of contact in that one-stop shop. So you, as their client, yes, you will be signing a contract with them. There will be whatever costs there are for the works, but they will arrange the grant support for you. They will make the application, and obviously they'll confirm that the grant has been approved before they do any of the works.
And does the grant get paid to the client or to the contractor?
I actually don't, I'm not entirely clear on that, but your net costs should be everything that the homeowner is paying.
Paul, you had a comment there. Yeah, we'll be sending out the information, and this is recorded, so it'll be up hopefully tomorrow. I'll get it processed and back out to everyone who's registered. There's a few companies who contacted me before this who said they couldn't make it, who were interested more so in the Leitrim Development Company side of things. So maybe we'll touch base with them tomorrow as well. So yeah, going forward, I'm hoping to do something like this every 6 weeks or so. So hopefully eventually led by some of the SECs. So if there's any topics that people want discussed or issues, just let me know and we can try to work around it and try to get some experts in to talk about it. Maybe hopefully a few site visits as well. It would be great to see some stuff that's happening in Leitrim. And maybe we might even cross the border. We'll see what happens. But yeah, any other questions before we close off?
Not maybe suitable for our own SEC, but I presume an SEC could become a one-stop shop, couldn't it?
Yes, it could. Absolutely. But any organization, okay, not any organization can apply to be a one-stop shop. There are criteria to be met, which at the moment basically means you have to be a fairly large organization with a substantial business activity. So you need 1 million of turnover, if I remember rightly. You need, so I think, 2 years of trading in that, or in a relevant industry. So there are certain criteria to be met in terms of your, I suppose, your capacity to exist as a business, or to run as a business. So then beyond that, you need to present a strategic plan of how you're going to carry out a multi-year work plan of home retrofitting.
It's a substantial piece of work for an SEC.
We are, like, I just to let everyone know, in IT Sligo, or ATU Sligo as it is now, we would have concerns that our region will not be served very well by one-stop shop. So we would always, we're helping a number of organizations try to get through that process. I think it's key that we have ones that are dedicated to the region, particularly to rural regions. Like, we'd be aware of the risk and the reality of one-stop, of previous, let's say, large organizations doing a lot of retrofitting and not really serving, Donegal, Leitrim, Sligo, Cavan even, and even Mayo. And I do think we need some dedicated organizations in that space. Like, ideally, it would be an energy agency model, a social enterprise, and we are working on that as well. But there are contractors in the region that are already SEI registered contractors. They know the works, they know how to do it, and I think some of them will get across the line this year.
Okay. Anything else before we go? No. So what I'll do is, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just to say thanks for that, very informative. Nuala here.
Thanks, Nuala. Okay, great. Well, we'll send out the information that we've talked about, and hopefully the recording. And if there's any further information that you need, I'll have our details at the bottom, and you can just contact either ourselves or James on the grant. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for organising it. Very good.
Bye.
Yeah, it's great.
Guys, well done.
Thanks very much.
Right, everyone.
Bye.